having grown up in this area and going to Colonel Crawford, one of the county schools here, you always kind of paid attention to I did anyway, the athletes in the area. And I can remember your dad, being a good football player because you followed, all those people who were athletes before you, and you kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps. Fortunately, I was able to go play college basketball at Ohio Northern, went away for a while and did some coaching and teaching out of the area. My first job back in the area was at Colonel Crawford, my alma mater. It's probably one of those things that you never wanted to be back home again type thing. And I remember being a head coach and running into your dad one day at a track meet or at a football game. And I'm talking to him, and he acted like he'd known me forever. And I'd only spoken to him a couple different times prior to that. And it was just, he just came into me, gave me a big handshake and a big hug and said, it's not that bad being back, is it, Bob? I said, no, it's not, Chuck. I said, it's kind of nice. And we stood and talked for probably 10 or 15 minutes at that track meet. And, every time I saw him after that, it was always a hi, a handshake, and a big hug. And how you doing, Bob? Or Bobby, he'd call me because that was the nickname when I was growing up, was Bobby. And, he said he'd followed me when I was going through some high school stuff, just keeping track of what's going on back in the papers. But I'll tell you, when I really got to know your dad was when I was working as a high school principal at Elgin. And when I was down as a high school principal at Elgin, our kids went to the Career Center at Tri-Rivers in Marion. And your dad at that time was teaching the construction trades. And in particular, he was doing the carpentry type stuff. And I'll tell you, every time I'd go in there, I'd talk to your dad, and your dad would say, hey, if you got any kid that needs some help, you got any kid that needs some loving, any kid that needs to learn a trade, you send them on to me and I'll take care of it. And I mean, he wasn't kidding. I mean, we'd had some kids who were struggling in high school. And I found out they had a love of woodworking. They had a love of working with their hands. And I would try to get them into the construction trades classes, with your dad. And the great thing was I tried to get over to Tri-Rivers at least once a month to meet with the kids from Elgin at the time, being the building principal, because I wanted them to make sure they felt a part of it. And one of the compliments that your dad gave me goes, it's nice seeing you here at Tri-Rivers as much as you're here. The kids really talk about it. And he goes, you're doing some good things with those kids at Elgin. Keep it up. But not only that, but I would go into his classroom, made it a point to go see him every day because, with the Bucyrus connection, the Crawford County connection. And he was so proud of his kids in that woodworking class. He would bring different kids up to me every time I visited and would show me what they were learning and have them perform, not just show me, but perform, the construction or the woodworking skills that they had learned. So it was really kind of nice. And you could see him just swell up with pride and watching those kids do that work and do it very well and not be scared to talk to an adult, to be able to have a conversation and be very respectful and shake your hand and talk to you, looking you in the eyeball. And then those kids just being proud of the work that they had just done. And we're proud to show you that. Your dad never met a stranger that I know of. Every time I'd walk through the hallways in that building, it was always, hey, Mr. Stone, or Stoney, or whatever the kids would call him or teachers would call him. And everybody at Tri-Rivers knew who he was. And he did a fantastic job in the construction trades with those kids and was very proud of the kids that turned out. And I know to this day, some of those kids from Elgin that went through construction trades still talk about him when I see him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's, Bob, that's a side of Dad that, we as his kids, didn't get to see because obviously we were grown and gone. And, to hear the impact he was making on kids in the classroom, while not surprising, it's great to hear that, you could take, you had the confidence when you found some kids that were really struggling, but they liked that carpentry aspect or working with their hands, that you could say, hey, let's go visit, the construction trades. So thank you for sharing that